Tay-Sachs disease is a rare genetic disease primarily found in children of Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. It is found to a lesser degree in French Canadian communities in Quebec, Old Order Amish communities in Pennsylvania, and Cajun communities in Louisiana. Tay-Sachs is considered a lysosomal storage disorder affecting males and females equally. In the general population, 1 in 300 people are carriers, resulting in 1 in 360,000 affected births. However, among those of Jewish heritage, the carrier rate is 1 in 30, resulting in 1 in 3,600 births. Tay-Sachs disease is an autosomal recessive disorder. This means an affected individual must be homozygous for the recessive gene. The affected individual inherits the defective gene from each of their parents. In Tay-Sachs disease, the hexagene is defective. This gene is found on the 15th chromosome. The hexagene is responsible for making the alpha subunit of hexosaminidase A, an enzyme that plays a critical role in the central nervous system. Hexosaminidase A is found in lysosomes, where it is responsible for breaking down and recycling a fatty substance called GM2 ganglioside. If GM2 ganglioside cannot be broken down, it accumulates in the cell at toxic levels. When GM2 ganglioside accumulates in neurons, the neurons malfunction and die. There are at least 80 known mutations of the hexagene which cause Tay-Sachs disease. The most common mutation is a frameshift mutation at exon 11. This frameshift mutation is an insertion of 4 nucleotides. The insertion of these 4 bases causes a premature termination sequence 9 nucleotides downstream. This results in undetectable mRNA and therefore a lack of hexosaminidase A.
Over the next few slides, we're going to go over the signs and symptoms of Tay-Sachs disease. Disease that comes in 3 forms: infantile form, juvenile form, as well as a late onset into adulthood. As the disease progresses, development slows and muscles begin to weaken, and it is also misdiagnosed as multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy. In the first form, it is infantile form. So children, usually around 3 to 6 months, will start presenting some of the issues that, as I've said before, look a lot like MS or muscular dystrophy, but they have some unique signs and symptoms where you get cherry red spots in the eyes, seizures instead of just muscle weakness, loss of vision, or complete blindness, and even problems swallowing and while trying to digest food. In the juvenile form, the blindness as well as vision will continue, and this is where children will have damage to the retina from the disease. Behavioral problems start to present themselves, as well as so the vision and now speech is affected. Seizures can still continue to happen as well. Late onset adult form of Tay-Sachs disease is very rare, but it does happen, as you can see by the chart on the right. The fine tremors begin, where people often think it's Parkinson's disease, and only a blood test can tell the physician what disease it is. Muscle weakness begins, tremors, as I mentioned, losing the ability to walk, and even psychiatric disorders can present themselves.
I will be discussing the treatment and prevention of Tay-Sachs disease. So as far as overall treatment and medication goes, there unfortunately is not any real cure or way to slow the progression of Tay-Sachs disease. A lot of times it's about improving the quality of life for the patients and making them as comfortable as possible. As far as medication goes, a lot of people prescribe anticonvulsants, as seizures are oftentimes a symptom of Tay-Sachs disease. Pain relievers. Also, they do just recommend good nutrition and hydration. And as you'll see in the bottom slide here, is that a lot of times children will end up having to use feeding tubes in order to make sure that they're getting the most balanced nutrition that they can in order to maintain as much of a healthy lifestyle as they can while going through this disease. As far as prevention and lab work goes, there is genetic testing through even just simple blood tests that the parents can take in order to see if they both have defective hexa genes, which will inevitably be passed down to their child, creating Tay-Sachs disease. And also genetic counseling, as you'll see below as well, is offered to kind of go over those blood test results with the parents and to give some informed information and help in decision making to see whether or not, or the likelihood of their child developing Tay-Sachs and whether conception in this way is the best outcome. However, there is great hope for the future in regards to developments in gene therapy. There was a university and medical school that was looking to replace the missing hexa enzyme in the brain by creating a gene therapy. They actually did an experiment on a 2-year-old. After a 2-year time period, that the child developed more control over their muscles and better eyesight. And CRISPR is also working to demonstrate genome editing efficiency in correcting that hexa mutation in order to see improvement. So there is hope for a cure, or at least slow progression for the future.
One story that I found online about a Tay-Sachs case is about a baby named Christiana Carl Steiger. So like most kids with Tay-Sachs, Chrissy didn't really show any symptoms till around 6 months old. At 6 months is when her parents noticed that she wasn't really able to sit up, she couldn't hold a bottle, she couldn't clap, and she couldn't crawl. Chrissy's parents also began to notice a significant startled response to any loud noises around her, which is typically a common characteristic of Tay-Sachs disease. When her parents took her to an ophthalmologist, the ophthalmologist also noticed cherry red spots behind her eyes, which is another typical sign of infantile Tay-Sachs disease. When her parents had her blood test done, the test had confirmed her condition to be Tay-Sachs disease, and the doctors told her that most kids with Tay-Sachs don't live past the age of 5, and that Chrissy wouldn't have very long to live. So this is a little bit of the background on genetic causes for her. Chrissy's dad is a carrier, and her mom is a potential carrier. Chrissy's parents also used an egg donor, and the egg donor also turned out to be a carrier as well. A screening test wasn't used for him because her parents didn't come from a Jewish background. As far as treatment goes, there's only one known treatment, but it's extremely experimental and extremely risky as well. It comes in 2 parts, and the first part of the treatment is 11 days of chemotherapy, followed by 1 day of total body radiation to wipe out the immune system. The second part of the treatment is a stem cell transplant. The reason for the stem cell transplant is so that hopefully the stem cells allow her body to create a missing enzyme, and that those enzymes will go to her brain and stop the disease from progressing. The recovery time for this kind of treatment is pretty long. Chrissy spent 89 days in the hospital after treatment was over.